Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been quite a while since I dropped my last video. I've been a little busy at work and life has been moving on. But I have had a lot of requests coming through LinkedIn and Instagram from people who want to know a little bit more about how they can prepare for the ISB interview process. I guess at this point, most of you have submitted your applications to ISB in round one. Some of you might also be looking at getting a heads up on round 2 and round 3 by looking at videos and maybe trying to understand what the interview looks like. Now, I just want to give you a disclaimer before we dive a little deeper into this video. That is that a lot of my advice is going to be general in nature. You might feel that it's not sufficient for the level of preparation that you're looking for. However, the ISB interview process is not a standardized thing. Okay, there are different kinds of panelists every single year. People with 5 years of experience and people with 20 years of experience might be sitting on the same table. People who have expertise in your sector and people who have absolutely no idea about your sector might also be sitting on the same table. So what questions they might ask you, I cannot predict, and what answers you should give them, I cannot plan out for you. Okay. Some of the advice I'm going to give is going to sound like stuff your dad might say. Just saying that the classic tips for preparing for an interview and feeling prepared for an interview have stayed the same over the last 100 and 200 years. Okay. Now, let's dive right in to try to understand what your day at ISB might look like. Now, there are two formats of interviews, right? You might have the on-campus interview and you might have an online interview. Okay. Online interview is definitely more convenient because it's on camera. It's you can sit at home and take the interview. You don't have the hassle of having to travel. But on-campus interview is great for the reason that you're making a physical impression on the people there, and you also go to the campus and kind of experience the surroundings there, right? You get to have a better understanding of what you're going to be getting into. Okay. Interview day, if you're on campus, might look like they would give you a time. Let's say it's on a weekend. Okay, Saturday at 1 o'clock, they're going to give you that time, and you might be asked to land up on campus at the administrative building probably half an hour or 45 minutes in advance. And there is a possibility that the interviews are running delayed, so you might be waiting there for sometimes half an hour or 45 minutes before even after your slot has come up. Don't worry about that, but just be mentally prepared for it. Don't get frustrated and don't get worried about anything. Okay. If you're online, of course, you don't have that. You're going to get a time and you're going to log in. If there's a delay, they're going to communicate to you by WhatsApp and say, hey, could you join at this time? The panelists are running a little delayed. Please bear with us. Okay. In terms of preparation tips for that day, here are a few things that you can follow. The first thing you need to make sure of is that you have completely eaten and digested your resume line by line. Okay, what do I mean by this? I mean that for every single sentence, word, and number in your resume, you need to have a solid backing for it, right? And by backing, I mean a good narrative, a good story, a very keen awareness of the kind of problem that you were trying to solve, who was there in your team with you, who solved what pieces were you handling, every single thing end to end. Okay. One way to do this is to just start asking yourself important questions. What was the major problem that I or the company was trying to solve? Why was this given to my team in particular? Was there anybody else who could have done this? Why did they not do this? What were the options that I had to solve this issue? From the alternatives, why did I choose this one? Why was this the most feasible? In case I didn't make the choice, why do I think leadership made that choice? How are my numbers? What are the results that I achieved? Are they realistic? If industry standard is 4% and I've achieved 25%, doesn't probably come off as realistic, right? And also knowing the industry standards is important. Sometimes they may ask you, hey, you achieved 25%. What's baseline? What's normal? And you're just sitting there and like, that looks bad on you. Okay. Asking yourself these W questions: why, what, when, where, and the last one, which is H, which is how. Right? It's going to get you prepared for every type of eventuality and every type of question there. The aim here is not to give the best answer. Okay, the aim is to give an answer. Even if it's not the best answer, you can at least say, hey, we tried this and this is what we think the logic behind this is. If you think there's something better, please do let me know. I'd love to incorporate it next time. Clean. Now, once you've also gone through your resume, I need you to be sure that you know every single word and every single number. Because when you're talking to them, sometimes you might say, hey, what is this 23% increase we see here? It's just going to be a generic statement. And that time you should not say something like, what do you mean, which 23%? That's bad. Don't ask a question back like that. Rather, I would rather prefer somebody who says, okay, do you mean the 23% increase in sales I achieved at IKEA, or the 23% increase in NPS that I achieved at Ford Motor Company? That exudes confidence. That tells them that you know exactly what you're talking about and you're absolutely comfortable and natural with all your accomplishments. Okay, so be sure that whatever's there on the resume, whatever's there on your profile, it's all there in your head, right at the top of the mind when you're walking into the interview. The next step I would say is to do mock interviews and prepare the answers that you're going to speak aloud during the interview. This does not mean that you type all of this out on a Google Doc and just keep it there and keep reading it day after day for a week before the interview. I think that's largely pointless. I think you need to have a proper mock interview session with somebody that you trust. And even if it's somebody that does not have too much domain knowledge with what you did, they should at least be able to give you feedback on your body language, the cadence of your speech, whether something you said confused them or not, right? Simple things like that. And the reason I'm saying you need to practice by speaking aloud is because your body and your mind have a very weird connection going on. Whenever you repeatedly say something, even if it's a lie, the more your brain hears it, the more it goes into your ear, the more you start to believe it, and the more your body starts to show that you believe it, right? For example, I could say, hey, I'm not a criminal during an investigation. But if someone asked me out of the blue, I would be hesitant, I would be nervous, my body language would show it off. But if I stand in front of a mirror and practice and keep telling myself, you are not a criminal, you're not a criminal, you are not a criminal, see how your body becomes more forceful, becomes more assertive, more relaxed, more natural. The thing is, during the interview, what they're looking at is how does what you say and what you've written in your application match up, right? Are you being truthful about things, or are you able to show truthfulness about it? That's all that matters. Practice repeatedly until you're 100% confident that if I put you in front of a camera and interviewed you, you would be able to be completely natural and talk about stuff without getting nervous, right? In my case, I'm absolutely unprepared for making this video, which is why I look like a nervous beanbag chair, right? Like I'm just sitting here all slouched and my hands are moving about, because I'm constantly thinking about what should I be saying next. And that effort takes the attention away from my body, from the way I'm sitting, from the way I'm talking, from the way I'm smiling, everything else. Okay. Now, beyond, of course, the resume and the mock interviews and the preparation for that, I think one of the single most neglected things in the entire interview preparation process is preparing for the day of the interview itself, which is planning out what you're going to do on that day, right? The reason I think this step is neglected because people underestimate how much you can get distracted or nervous or anxious on the day of the interview itself, because of factors that are completely outside the interview, right? Or the ISB preparation or the questions itself. I suggest that you sit down and plan out how you're going to get to the interview location, whether it's in your city or it's in another city. How are you going to fly out there? How are you going to transport yourself from the airport to the campus? How long does it take? Are your flight tickets on time for it? Are you going to pack an extra set of clothes? Because you never know, you might be walking on campus and a crow may fly by and your suit is now soiled, right? Do you have alternative preparations for that? An extra shirt maybe? Do you have all the toiletries you need for a last minute check before you walk into the interview room? Is your blazer ironed? Is it dry cleaned? Are your shoes polished? Every single piece of detail that you can, make sure that you're planning it out completely, at least 2 weeks in advance, right? Reason I'm saying this is because preparation is everything. Preparation is 60% of confidence. The remaining 40% comes from content and delivery. Okay, the more prepared you are, the more prepared you feel, the more confident you look, the more you smile during the interview, more you relax because you've taken care of everything that can possibly go wrong. What can you be anxious about anymore, right? Beyond this, I would also say, like carrying over from the previous point on preparing yourself for the day of the interview, you need to dress well. And when I say you need to dress well, I'm not talking about, being flashy with how you dress. Like, I'm not saying suddenly look like a business magnate or something. What I am saying is dress in classic business formals and have a clean and compact look. Okay. For gentlemen, I would suggest that you wear a gray, blue, or white shirt, pair it with black or navy pants, maybe black or brown shoes, and a matching belt, a good, dry cleaned and ironed blazer, and a matching tie that goes along with the rest of your suit, right? Don't carry anything bulky like a backpack on your back into the interview room because you want to look like a rider and not like a horse, right? Get a side slung office bag, where you just keep a few basic things. Have a stack of business cards inside your bag. Carry a simple notepad with a good professional looking pen, and you're pretty much sorted for the interview. Maybe carry a printed copy of your resume. It's not necessary, but then again, you need to feel prepared that even if they don't have copies of the resume, you're able to hand it out to them and say, oh, sorry, you didn't get it. Here, I have it in front of me. Go ahead, take it. So, take care of your dressing. Where, in terms of grooming, I would say where you need to pay attention mainly is to the face, right? Because men tend to think that they have good beards. I think I have a good beard. I actually don't. It takes a lot of effort to even get this to stay in one direction. It generally goes everywhere. So, in terms of grooming, your beard, make sure that it's either trimmed properly or it's shaved off completely if you feel you don't maintain it well. Okay, wear a little bit of aftershave before you go into the interview room. Wear some beard oil and try to comb it down if you do plan on carrying a beard into the interview. Get a nice clean haircut. Make sure that you're getting the haircut 2 weeks in advance, because sometimes if there's a mistake, your barber takes the trimmer and just scalps a big portion of your head. At least you have time to let it grow back a little bit, or do some damage control, right? Carry a little bit of all the toiletries that you might need for a last minute check. Like I said, right, it could be a comb, it could be a little bit of hair gel, it could be a little bit of deodorant. Wear a tasteful amount of cologne. Okay, make sure that you're not flooding their nostrils with lime and lemony flavored deodorant spray. Okay, there's a little bit of cologne that's enough to make you feel nice and smell good, and carry anything that will enable you to feel fresh after sitting there for 1 hour in the in sweaty conditions. That's all. For the ladies, the advice is pretty much identical except for the grooming part. Of course, that's going to change a little bit. You might want to wear a tasteful amount of makeup that makes you feel good and makes you look good and professional. You don't need to kill your feet with heels if you're not used to them. All right, you can wear professional looking shoes. Nobody's going to be looking at your feet all the time. Okay, if you feel that heels make you feel powerful and prepared, go ahead and wear those. Whatever comes to you naturally, right? You can also accessorize a very little bit, a nice watch, and for the ladies, maybe a good pair of earrings that are not too flashy and are not too distracting, right? Of course, I suck at grooming advice because I don't groom myself very well on a day-to-day basis either. But I'm just telling you that what you could do in order to feel a little bit more powerful, a little bit more confident, a little bit more business gangster, right? Now, once you've done all of these hygiene stuff, I would say now we come to the main part, which is what you're going to say during the interview itself. At this stage, you've properly prepared, you've probably practiced your question and answer sessions during the mock interview. But one critical aspect that people forget is their introduction. A lot of people think introduction is, what's the big deal with that? You're just going to go and talk about yourself. No. Your introduction, a 30-second introduction, is going to be the gateway for the interview panel to get to know you a little better, to get more interested in you, right? Now, simple few tips of the introduction is restrict it to 20 to 30 seconds max. It should be a teaser trailer and not like a full-length movie, okay? You don't need to go into full detail on every single company that you worked in, every single role that you worked in, talk about every single project. That's pointless. Those questions are going to be asked by the interview panel anyway. You need to make this an interactive discussion and conversation rather than a data dump on their brains early in the morning, right? So The other thing I noticed is that people like to state obvious things during the introduction, right? Like people will start with, "Hi, my name is Arjun." Why? They have the interview printed in front of them. They already know your name. You don't need to start with that. Just jump directly into the meat of it, right? Which, for example, on my end, like just a sample introduction that I would probably give is. I'm a strategy and operations consultant at PwC. I'm absolutely passionate about financial inclusion, and I'm interested in digital transformation in banking, financial services, and insurance. I talk about insurance automation so much that my friends no longer invite me to drink sessions on the weekend. They just tell me to shut up and stay at home. I also am an avid collector of original comic books, and I love nothing more than going on treks with my parents during the weekend. Right now, look at the introduction. I've talked a little bit about my current position. I've talked a little bit about what I'm actually passionate about in terms of career and work. I've talked about a little bit about my personality. I've said that I talk a lot about claims automation. I'm always serious and I'm always on the go and hustling. So my friends get irritated with me sometimes. And I also talked about me being a nerd, right? I love collecting comic books and I love spending time with my family. So you've pretty much given them a great introduction of who you are as a person rather than what work that you've done all the time. That's bloody boring. Okay. Additionally, what I would say about introduction is that you practice it again and again so that it's absolutely natural. You're just laying back and just talking about talking about yourself. It's just a discussion that you're having with your friend who comes from a different domain. Okay. Now, aside from your introduction, you also need to be spot on and concise with your answers during the interview itself. Same rule as what I talked about for the introduction applies here, which is be very concise with your answers, provide teaser, and then content. Okay, what do I mean by this? If I ask you about a project, I don't want you to give them a data dump. Say that, we try to increase sales by 25%. Okay, can you talk a little bit more about this? Well, here's the quick thing I want to talk about. The problem statement that we faced at Uber was that we had a lot of customer cancellations, and we were trying to understand what's the extent of damage that it causes to our revenue. We understood that nearly 25% of revenue was lost because of this, and we tried to tackle that by doing a little bit more research into user behaviors and trying to understand driver behaviors as well, which lead to this, right? And you stop there. Then I say, can you elaborate a little bit further? Sure. The problem statements that we identified through our customer research and through our driver behavior research was X, Y, Z, A, B, C. We realized that the top issue that was causing this was A, B, and C. We decided to create 3 separate work streams for each of these issues. I picked up work stream B because I felt that my skill sets aligned with this and my interests also aligned with solving this. I also wanted to learn a few new things which I could learn by tackling this particular problem. Okay, and again, pause. Then they're going to be like, can you go a little further? Or you can even tell them, I would love to dive a little bit deeper into this if you don't mind. And they're going to say, yes, please go ahead. Or no, that's okay. I understand what you're saying. Let's move on to something else, right? You give them a chance to go a little deeper or to back out if they want. That's how you have an interactive discussion instead of a data dump to them. Okay. Now, we've talked about introductions. We've talked about how you're going to answer. We need to talk about something that people don't think about much, which is how you're going to exit the interview. Okay. I think there's a rule in psychology called the peak end rule, okay, which is every human being, when they have an experience, they remember 2 things very sharply about the experience: the peak of it and the end of it. So if I give you an example, you're bungee jumping. The peak of your experience is that first moment of weightlessness you feel when your feet leave the platform, right? Like that's a moment of most fear, most anticipation, most excitement, most nervousness. You're feeling like a mix of emotions. You're almost going to throw up, but you're not throwing up. You're absolutely happy, but you're also terrified at the same time. Right? That's why we go bungee jumping in the first place. In the middle of the jump, though, you're pretty much used to it. Like you've been falling for 20 feet at this point. You know what the weightlessness feels like. Right? So your excitement tends to wane a little bit at that point in time. And the end rule is when you're being brought back up to the platform, right? Because all the excitement is over, you're looking at it in retrospect, you're like, oh, that was like just 5 seconds, but it felt like, 20 minutes when I was jumping down. So Human beings remember the peak of the experience and the end of the experience. Same rule applies to the interview. The peak of the experience is when you're talking about a specific accomplishment and you're very proud and happy about it, and they're happy looking at you being happy, right? And the end rule is when you say goodbye to them. Goodbye is very classic. Okay, there's no real, separate, distinct formula for this, right? Start with a good thank you and a handshake. Call out every person by name. You say, thank you, Abhishek, shake their hand. Thank you, Arjun, shake their hand. Thank you, Ankit, and shake their hand. Right? Calling them out by name is important because it means that you make a personal connection with them. Right? You've told them, you've given them a hello Ankit, hello Arjun, hello Abhishek, and you're giving them a thank you Arjun, thank you Abhishek, this thing. Right? So the interview is not just about yourself, it's more about what you got from them as well. The next thing that I say is have a very firm handshake. Okay, I see a lot of people out there with very limp handshakes, and even if you've been very confident during the interview, if your handshake is not confident, that's going to leave me with a little bit of doubt about how confident you are. Okay, at least personally for me, I think practicing your handshake is great. Get your dad, get your bro, get your sister, whoever it is, and just practice handshakes with them. See what works for you. See what makes them feel like you conveyed confidence to them, right? And one last one last tip that I would also suggest is that you have a stack of business cards printed out and ready with you, because nothing shows professionalism like exchanging contacts with somebody. Okay, smartly take out a business card holder from your pocket, from your breast pocket, or from your pants pocket, and say, hey, I'd love to stay in contact with you. Here's my business card with my name and contact details. Feel free to get in touch with me anytime. It's been a really interesting conversation with you, right? Hand over the business cards to them. They may accept it, they may not accept it, does not matter. At least they're happy to see that somebody's got this much hustle that they brought their business cards even to the damn interview. Right? They're all about business. They're all about getting that cash in. They're all about making contacts and making a network. That's exactly who we want at ISB. And ask for their business cards back, right? Like, how do you know? You might be in touch with these people for something else tomorrow. The business world is pretty small. Even if you don't get into ISB, you might get into an IIM, or you might get into some international university. You might come back and work here, or they may move abroad. What I have seen is that I meet a lot of the people in my life that I never think I will ever meet again and again, right? Last tip, most important, is do not act like an excited kid in front of anybody who can determine whether you get into ISB or not. What do I mean by this? You finish the interview, you walk out of the interview room, and immediately you grab your phone, call up your friend, your sister, or your mom, and you're just jumping up and down that, hey man, my interview went very well. And the panelists can still hear you. The panelists can still see you outside the door. That just completely destroys the gravity of the professionalism that you try to convey to them. So get out of earshot, get out of eyesight, walk out of campus if you need, and then make all of these calls and all of this childlike excitement. Go get drunk at a bar, I don't care. But as long as you're on campus, and as long as people there can scrutinize you, fellow candidates, panelists, other alumni can scrutinize you, do not show your excitement or show your emotions completely. Okay, thank them professionally. If there's somebody from the admissions committee waiting outside of your interview, ask them for more details on the next steps, and also ask them when you might expect to hear from them again. Take their contact details, because you never know, admissions process might get delayed. You might want a few updates, so it's good to have that contact information with you. Thank them for arranging this interview for you. If there's somebody else who has messaged you and told you about this, thank them as well. Say you had a great time. Say you met A, B, and C, Abhishek, Arjun, and Ankit, and it was a good time talking to them, and you would love to stay in touch. Okay, simple hygiene things that you need to take care of to make your chances of being remembered very high. All right. I think that's pretty much it. That's all I would say in terms of interview preparation. There's nothing else that you really need. If you've got an interview call, pretty much that's it. Like you're pretty much set for getting your admission already. Whether they select you, whether they don't select you, it's all dependent on what other candidates are there that day. You might be the best guy in the world, but if there's like one person who got like 0.5% marks more than you, or made a better impression on the admissions panel than you, then yeah, they're going to get the admission. So if you're going to constantly worry about that, you're not getting anywhere. Aside from this, I also do professional admissions counseling, including essay preparation and interview preparation. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram if you'd like to talk more about my services. And like always, if you like this video, if you like this content, please drop a like and click on the subscribe button to let me know that you'd like to see more of these videos. I also answer questions in the comment section, so feel free to drop a comment if there's anything about this video that that made you get a few questions or made you a little doubtful. Happy to hear from you guys, and best of luck for your admissions process wherever it is, whether it is ISB or elsewhere. So thank you and sayonara. Bye bye.